Now that we know that our quadratic equation has two real rational solutions, then our next step is to solve for those two real rational solutions. And one way to do that for this particular quadratic is called the AC method. Now, if you remember, our standard form for a quadratic equation or quadratic expression is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So that's standard form. Now let's make sure that our quadratic is in that standard form. So we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We're good to go. So my first step for this method of solving, of factoring this, is I need to identify A, B, and C. So for this particular equation, A is going to equal 8. You notice that the x squared does not go with the 8. It is only the coefficient. B is going to equal 14, and C equals 5. Now that we have A, B, and C, then we can plug these into what we call our AC method to figure out which factors we're going to use. So my first step in now finding the factors is going to be multiplying A times C. And A times C would be 8 times 5. And 8 times 5 is 40. Now, I need to find the factors of 40 that will give me my B. And in this case, my B is 14. I'm going to make 3 columns. The middle one's going to be kind of small because I need to add all of those factors together. So let's factor 40. I'm going to make kind of a factor tree for 40. So I have 1 and 40, and 1 plus 40 gives me 41. 41 is not 14, so those are not the factors I want to use. I have 2 and 20. 2 plus 20 is 22. Again, not 14. 3 will not divide evenly into 40, but 4 will. So I have 4 plus 10, and 4 plus 10 equals 14. 14 is what I'm looking for, so I'm going to stop right there. These two are the factors that I'm going to use to come back over to my original equation, and we're going to factor this from there. Now, I'm going to use those two factors, the 4 and the 10, to expand the 14x. And by expanding it, it's going to look like this. So my 8x squared is going to stay the same, but I'm going to rewrite the 14x as 4x plus 10x. 4x plus 10x still gives me my 14x, so I'm good. Plus 5 equals 0. So now I've written it in expanded form. The next step, lots of steps, right? The next step then is to do what we call factoring by grouping. If I look at all of those terms, there's not one factor that I can factor out of all of them. But if I look at those first two terms, the 8x squared and the 4x, those two have common factors. And if I look at the next two terms, the 10x and the 5, those two have common factors. So let's factor out those common factors and see if that does anything for us. So if I look at 8x squared and 4x, I notice that both of them have an x. And I also see that 4 will divide evenly into 8. So I know that I can factor out a 4 out of both of those. So if I divide 8x squared by 4x, I end up 8 divided by 4 is 2, and x squared divided by x is x. And then a positive 4x divided by a positive 4x is just 1 because any number divided by itself is 1. Now, if I look at the 10x and the 5, well, 5 will divide evenly into 10, so I know that I have a 5 that will divide out. Both of them don't have an x, so I can't divide out an x. So that's all. So I can factor out that 5. So 10x divided by 5 would be 2x. And 5 divided by 5, again, any number divided by itself is 1. And that whole thing still equals 0. Well, let's see if we might can figure out something that's going to help us with this. Well, if I look at that being a single term and then that being a single term, and I can do that because they're things that are multiplied together with a plus in between, then I notice that I have a 2x plus 1 in both of those. Okay, let's factor out that 2x plus 1. So I have a 2x plus 1. All right, I've used both of those. Now I am left with a 4x and a 5 with a plus in between. All right, so I need to multiply that 2x plus 1 by the 4x and the 5, and now that equals 0. Oh, well, this gives me a really good something that I know something to do with. I know that there's this multiplicative property of 0 that says that if two things are multiplied together and they equal 0, then one or both equal 0. So in this case, that lets me separate these things out. So that tells me that 2x plus 1 has to equal 0, and or 4x plus 5 has to equal 0. Oh, I know how to solve these things now. Now I can get x by itself. So for this first one, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides so I can get the variable term by itself. So that's going to be 2x equals negative 1. Now I need the variable by itself, so I have to divide by the coefficient. So if I divide both sides by 2, that gives me x equals negative 1/2. Now let's work the next one. So I need the variable term by itself, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. And now I need the variable by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by the coefficient. So that's 4, so I end up with x equals negative 5/4. So now I know what x equals in this quadratic. So the answer to my problem then would be negative 1/2 and negative 5/4. Now in a later video, we'll talk about what that means and where we're going to put those.